So we have the question from Ablayhan, what is mucosa? Mucosa is the part of like the lining of all organs that need to secrete something to protect them. So if you think about the mouth, about the esophagus, the respiratory system, and all digestive system, they all need to kind of, in order to protect the covering, they need to secrete the mucus, and all these linings that secrete mucus, it is called mucosa. So this mucosa, mucus. It is a viscous part of liquid part of the secretion, and it not only protects the lining, so the layer of epithelial tissue. It also gives some nutrients and some signals. So think about it as the medium through which you send the signals to other cells, etc. So if you take, for example, the digestive system, in one part the mucus is acidic, in other part it's basal, so they are of a different pH. So whenever part of mucus, acidic mucus, goes to the basal part, it receives the signal that the basal part should start the digestion. So this is also one of the roles for mucus. And again, the mucosa is this epithelial lining or epithelial layer that secretes this mucus. So the question from Dana, do all glands produce secretion? Yes, they do. And some of these glands, they produce exocrine secretion. So what is secretion? It is the transportation of something outside the origin place. Okay. So if you take the glands, like pancreas, for example, it has endo and exocrine activities. So exocrine is, let me share the screen. So if you have, for example, this pancreas, it has these ducts, and these ducts, they are the system of tubes, and these tubes, they collect the secretion or secret, and the pancreas, it kind of transports these vesicles into this duct or tube, and the vesicles, they contain enzymes like lipase, amylase, and protease. And then everything goes through this duct in the duodenum. So here we have duodenum, and this everything gets here and starts the digestion. So this is exocrine activity. And also we have the endocrine activity. So these endocrine cells, they produce glucagon, insulin, and somatostatin. So these guys, they control the glucose levels. So everything that is produced by these cells, it gets into the bloodstream. So this is the blood vessel. And whenever it gets inside, it is the hormone or signal transmitter. Which then gets to the place of action through the blood. So again, the stuff goes through blood to the application point. So in this case, our insulin, etc., it gets to muscles, to the liver, etc., and they start certain pathways that will finally control the glucose levels. And this is about the secretion of the gland. And if you take other glands, like mammary gland, for example, it will produce milk, and through the system of ducts, it excretes it outside, so the baby, the small child, can obtain it and feed.
Hello, I have a
Hello.
question regarding dense proper connective tissue. So, are the stem cells the special part of dense proper connective tissue, or just I don't understand it about stem cells?
So, okay, so the stem cells, they are property of all tissues. Okay, so because of the stem cells, we have the renewal of the tissue. So if you take any type of tissue, in this case, it will be the tendon, for example, we will have stuff. Just a second. So these fibers, and between these fibers, we will have cells that reconstruct the tendon. But whenever this cell dies, we need to replace it with something else, well, with another cell. So somewhere beneath the covering of this tendon, so it really needs to be covered with something. We have the pool of cells that can differentiate. So if you take these cells, they will be stem cells. You see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So let's say that these cells, these are stem cells, and all stem cells, they can differentiate into something else. And in this case, it will be the fibroblasts. So then after it goes through the process of division, one of its daughter cells will become the fibroblast, another will replace itself in the spot, okay? So that the pool is always the same as it is now. So then these fibroblasts, they migrate to the place of rupture, for example, if we have a rupture here. So these fibroblasts, one of these cells, daughter cells, will go here and start repairing the tissue. So it will recreate these fibers so that the tendon can do its job very well. And these stem cells, they are the property of all tissues. Okay, this is the rule. Because without these stem cells, we will have a finite number of cells, differentiated cells. So differentiated cells, they usually do not divide. And in this case, let's say that we don't have the stem cells in tissue, and we have 3,000 differentiated cells. It means that at some point they become too old and they all die out, and the tissue cannot perform the specific functions of it. But with the kind of loss of function, the organism also loses something that is related to this function of the tissue. That's why we need to always renew the number of cells that can perform the action. That's why we need the pool of cells, and they might be the so-called progenitors. Progenitor of these particular tissue. So if you take the blood, for example, it has the blood progenitors. If it's neural tissue, it also has neural progenitors, etc. So these guys, they are stem cells for this tissue, and they kind of renew the number of differentiated cells as it is needed. If it doesn't, if the organism does not need to renew the number, these progenitors, they stay in the sleeping mode. So they do not divide, they do not produce anything, they just stay there without doing anything, and they wait until the moment when we need these differentiated cells.